Madam Contest Chair, members of the executive, specially invited guests, and fellow Toastmasters. Good afternoon. And it's a good afternoon indeed. This memo, annual vacation leave. The subject of this memo certainly is an attention grabber. And this is one of the methods that Tricon's management use to communicate with its employees. And what is communication? Communication basically is a sender sending a message to a receiver. And that message is encoded based on the person's values, based on the person's personal experiences, and it's interpreted by the receiver based on the relationship that he or her has with the person sending the message. And communication has three simple principles: writing, speaking, and listening. And we want to talk about some of those principles this afternoon. Writing is an important aspect of communication. And at Tricon, a small manufacturing company in East Trinidad, management conveys messages through emails, letters, and policies. Three important policies that management use are the quality manual, because it's an ISO certified company, collective agreement, because it's a unionized company, and the employee handbook for monthly paid staff who are non-unionized. To communicate with its customers and its suppliers, letters, emails, facsimiles, all of us use these tools. But in Tricon, there's a standardized way of writing a letter or sending an email. And that's because the company wants to ensure that every letter, every memorandum, every email is of a high quality, a high standard. And it also wants to make sure that a certain uniformity is maintained in all the documents. Communicating in writing has a certain aspect of finality in it. I'm sure all of us from time to time have heard someone say, I want it in writing. Give it to me in writing. Jackie, I want it in writing, because I'm not going to take your word for it. So we hear that from time to time. And because communication in writing is so important, it can also be used as a legal document. But as good as it is open to misinterpretation. Words, because of people's different value systems and backgrounds, they can interpret words differently. And a simple thing as whether you use capital letters or common letters in an email makes a world of a difference. Because if you send an entire email using capital letters, the individual feels as if you are shouting. And that's not how we want to communicate. Besides writing, listening is another important principle of communication. And listening goes beyond simply hearing words. It means that we need to interpret those words and we need to respond to those words. Henry Neuer in 1971 says that listening is opening up ourselves to others and welcoming them into our very being. And Bibi et al. In 2001 says that we listen for 4 reasons: to evaluate, to emphasize, to learn, and to enjoy. And this afternoon we're certainly going to listen to enjoy when we hear those humorous speeches. At Tricon, the human resource officer listens to evaluate, because when management brings problems that they have with employees to her, she needs to sit with the information and try to figure out a way to deal with it. She needs to find some sort of resolution, or perhaps simply to discipline the person. And so she really needs to listen. But this listening to evaluate sometimes can have problems, in that she might listen and hear one particular thing that the person says and hang on to that word, and then everything gets skewed because she doesn't hear the rest of the message, only that particular thing. So we need to pay attention to that when we're communicating via listening. So we talked about writing and listening. Let's talk about speaking. That's what I'm doing. And I'm hoping that I'm getting your attention, because With speaking, speaking style is very important. And we find that the speaking style is in relation to your audience, and it's also in relation to your educational background. So if I'm speaking in China, I would probably stand here and use very little hand gestures. If I'm in Britain, I would definitely want to stand behind the podium. But if I'm in Trinidad, oh no, I have to speak with my hands, my feet, my entire body. A researcher in 1961, Basil Bernstein, he found that speaking style is also related to your educational background. In Tricon, 13% of the employees have university education, 1% functionally illiterate, and 86% have up to secondary school education. So the human resource officer has to find a way to bridge the gap between all of those individuals. And most of the time, the workers, they speak in the restricted code, whereas management speaks in the elaborated code. And the restricted code, you use shorter sentences. For example, I might say, Claudette, warm now. But in the elaborated code, I would say, how are you? How was your day? So the elaborated code has a more universalistic meaning, and you can understand it whether you're from Canada, Trinidad, America, wherever, you understand that. And so the human resource officer at Tricon needs to find a way to speak both ways, because she needs to speak to both management and employees, and she needs to transmit messages between them. So whether you're at Tricon, you're at TSTT, BDC, wherever you are, you need to communicate. And so I will ask you to please choose one of those options, whether it's speaking, it's listening, whatever it is. If it's writing, whatever you choose, make sure you choose the right method for your message. And I hope that I was able to communicate that very clearly to you. Thank you, Madam Contest Chair.